Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live in the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. I'm super stoked, super happy to have on across from me today, Shea Hillenbrand. What is up, brother?
Not much. How you doing?
This is awesome. So Shea is a two-time All-star Major League Baseball player, but there's so many other layers to his life, and we're going to dive into as many layers as we can today and try to learn as much as I can about him and how he's inspiring other people, how he's investing in real estate, how he's investing in his family, so many layers. So I always start off our podcast by just starting to get to know what you're currently doing, and then we're just going to let the story go and just have a good conversation today. So what are you currently up to? I know you're investing in real estate and family and inspiring others. So give me a little rundown of what you're up to now.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity, and hopefully maybe through this process of this little time that we're spending together, I'm able to help inspire or help transform. So maybe one of your listeners or more than one, that'd be cool. But right now, I have 5 kids. So I'm a father, 3 adopted children, and then I have 2 daughters that are stepdaughters. I don't really think about them as stepdaughters, but my wife has 2 daughters. So kind of like the Brady Bunch. Yeah. And through that process, what I'm doing, I'm in the real estate space. And what I found my niche inside the real estate space is the mindset, is the identity, helping real estate agents going from good to great and addressing problems within that space. You know, like 97% of realtors, after they get their license, a year after that, they don't even practice. And it's not because the tips and the tricks and the techniques and the lead generation, all that stuff. Excuse me. What it is their identity. What it is the number of beliefs. So busting through that and being able to be a person that's myself that's lived both my childhood dreams of playing Major League Baseball and owning a zoo. You get to that point in life after you go through the darker parts of your life and you sit there and say, what's really the purpose of life? So through that process, I love inspiring people. I love helping transform people, get them unstuck, and get them to live the fullest version of themselves, regardless of where they are. But my specialty of where I try to place my focus is professional athletes, high performers, and in the real estate space.
So when did that transition occur from your career ending to starting the zoo? But we'll get into the zoo. We'll get into all those things. But when did that transition occur when you said, you know what, I have something to offer other people and I have a mindset that's going to change other people? When did that just click in your head? And who was the first person, do you remember, that you inspired or changed that you said, I got something here?
Oh, those are great questions. I never had those questions asked to me before, so super excited to answer those. I was one breath away, and that's kind of like my slogan, one breath away. So many people are one breath away from giving up, and what they need to do is shift that perception to you're one breath away from a breakthrough in your life, because a breakthrough happens in a moment in time. It's not a week, a month, a year. It can happen in a moment in time. Shifting that perspective, shifting that mindset, and have understanding of that story that you tell yourself. So for me, I was one breath away from losing my life after I was overdosing on drugs and alcohol to try to numb that pain, because I had attached my identity to what I did of being a professional athlete and being a successful professional athlete. If you don't know who you are, when you go into what you do and the stakes get higher and the pressure to succeed becomes so great, you inherently attach who you are to what you do. And I did that. And as you know, baseball is a lot of failures. So I live and died every single day on my performances, and I had to become disconnected from who I am because I was so scared to lose that identity of being treated like a god, of being that professional athlete that plays in front of 40,000 people every night and millions of people on TV. So, like I said, I jumped ship from Major League Baseball in the prime of my career. I left $50 million on the table because I hated myself so much, and I hated the game so much because I didn't know who I was. And I went and started a zoo. Like, I had my second childhood dream was to buy a zoo. I think I might be the only Major League Baseball player in the history to leave baseball and buy a zoo. So I accumulated 300 permanent exotic animals through that process: camels, kangaroos, llamas, alpacas, monkeys, zebras, everything. I was like Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. I love that. And I love transforming children's lives in my community through that process. And it was just amazing what happened. But it came all on a steep price. I lost everything. I lost my identity. I lost my family my wife at 15 years. I lost my kids and lost my millions of dollars. And I almost lost my life. So that turning point right there of me losing everything and being one breath away and then waking up the next day by the grace of God and continuing on to be able to make it through that. The Lord put my wife, Kristen, in my life. It took someone else to help me through that process. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about helping other people, because I couldn't do it on my own, and I was super, uber successful, and I was on top of the world. It took someone else to help me, like, recreate, reinvent this Shea Hillenbrand. I wasn't always like this. I was a cancer of the clubhouse. I was that angry guy. I was that a-hole because I had so much anger and so much pain built up inside myself, and that's what fueled me to go out there and perform every single night. So as for answering that question of who I help first, myself.
I love that. Have you ever, as you're saying that, okay, as our conversation goes, you're going to learn this from my podcast very quickly. I don't have nothing scripted. I just go by the questions. And as I hear you talk, I try to pick certain things that I think are going to touch the audience. As you're talking about that, when you're in the clubhouse, you're the mean guy, you're the tough guy, you're the a-hole. Now that you realize that and you can sit back and understand that, have you ever reached out to any of those ex-teammates to say, hey, I realized that, or hey, I should have done this? Have you ever reached out to any of them that you know you haven't done?
Absolutely not. And let me tell you why. The game, baseball, the sport, not the teams, not the people within the game, but the game makes you focus on yourself. So I have to look out for myself. And it breeds a bipolar personality, because you're hanging out with your teammates and then you're going down to kill somebody. I got to train myself to kill the pitcher. Like, to have success, I got to train to kill. So tap it into that alter ego, tap it into that darker side. That's what drives a lot of guys. So across the board, like, what I'm sharing with you is probably, and this is a Shea Hillenbrand stat, probably 90% of guys go through that. So I think players will see the change with what I'm doing now, and I think that's the impact. I just lived. I didn't do anything miserably, but when you're in that environment, you really don't have to worry about, or you don't focus on what other people think, because they're not worried about what other people think as well. They're focused on themselves. So it's really not a team environment at that level. It's an individual environment, and how you can add with yourself and your abilities to that team to have one common goal.
Now that you can sit back and like you said, everything's past, you can look back, you're looking at your past. When you analyze and you look at everything that you went through mentally, and it's all mentally, and I'm going to talk about NLP in a second, but it's all mentally when you went through, you weren't at that moment of shifting yourself or reframing yourself, your mind. Do you believe if the tools were taught to you earlier, your career would been changed in the way where the mindset where you would have been able to enjoy it a lot more if you had somebody like you teach you this at 21, 22?
100%. Absolutely. I was sat down by a borderline Hall of Fame teammate my rookie year, and he said, I'm going to be watching you on TV, and you're going to make $100 million playing baseball. I knew inside myself what I was capable of doing. I was capable of hitting 300, 30 home runs, and 100 RBIs every single year, and that's borderline Hall of Fame status. But I couldn't achieve that because of the story that I told myself. So being able to trust somebody for one, and being able to understand that that would be something that I can delegate my time to and energy to and effort to as a player, because we had 100% focus on the game. I know 100% right now, I would have played that Shea Hillenbrand then, would have paid Shea Hillenbrand now $1 million and said, dude, go with me, because I knew I could achieve that $100 million status. Right now, for myself, I don't care about the money. That's just to put things in perspective.
Yeah, of course,
but I'm super fascinated with what causes people to make the decisions and actions they make, and why did that player, and why did so many other players not achieve their full potential, whether it's on the baseball field, whether it's in the entrepreneurial space, whether it's in the family space, whatever that might be, the real estate space. So 100% agree, yes, it would have made a huge difference in my life.
So you're throwing a lot of things, a lot of lessons and tools that are learned in NLP. So did you study NLP? This is something you've learned, you've mastered on your own? Because a lot of the things you're saying, the reframing, reshifting, and all, there are a lot of NLP techniques and neuro-linguistic programming techniques. And I'm certified as NLP. So I'm hearing this all, and I'm hearing this all, and NLP, there's a lot of aspects of it I don't agree with, but there's a lot of aspects when just sitting down with somebody and building rapport, building commonality, building that trust level. And then I'm a huge believer in reshifting. And I do that with a lot of dads. Like, you hear dads all saying, I got to be home for dinner. No, you get to be home for dinner. I got to pick up my kids from school. No, you get to pick up your kids from school. Those little, how you utilize words on your everyday life makes a huge difference. And everything you're saying is just you're constantly rechanging the word or rechanging everything, which I appreciate. Who taught you that, or where did you get that instilled in your head? Because that's something you're not born with. You have to either learn it from somebody or read it, or either through a indirect mentor. Like where did you get that?
Just to be a student of the game, I went on a 12-year deep dive to try to find purpose, to try to find I remember driving around so many times, like I lived my childhood dreams. I did the American dream. I did what we were supposed to do, but I lost everything through the process. So for one, what drives me now is I have an obsession for people not to feel that pain that I felt on top of the world. So that's near and dear to my heart, because I didn't think I could make it through. Like I was done. I didn't want to function. So I went on this 12-year deep dive, and I really found fascination with Tony Robbins. Obviously, he's deep into that stuff. But just doing a podcast and watching YouTube channels, Ed Milet stuff, the Les Brown stuff, the Tony Robbins stuff, the Eric Thomas stuff, ET stuff, and it just sat there, and I just like reverse engineered everything, because the biggest thing that I want to show people that I went through is that when I left Major League Baseball, I was just struggling so bad with my identity and I just caused so much ruckus in that environment that I disconnected from who I was, and I was trying to become a people pleaser. I was trying to prove to other people that I wasn't that person. So I disconnected from who I was at the core. So I couldn't tap into the intangibles that got me to the top, that I trained and I harnessed and I mastered to become a peak performer every single night on a Major League Baseball field. So that was a tough route, and that's what ultimately led me down to being one breath away from losing my life, because I tried to prove to everybody rather than connecting with my true identity of who I was at the core and establishing, why am I here? What do I want to do? And that process was challenging, but being able to figure that out is super liberating, and it's super empowering. When I walk into a room, I don't feel like I have any competition. Not because I don't think I'm better than anybody else, because I've tapped into who I truly am. Yeah. And I know there's a certain amount of people that need to hear my voice. And that's when I establish that lane and I stay there.
Yeah, I love that. One thing you said, people pleaser. And I think as a major league, as a pro athlete, but I think you could take that towards a lot of younger individuals now through social media need to hear that, because I think social media is a tool to essentially please everybody, because social media is it can reckon lives. And what I mean by that is social media is a tool where it seems that the victims are more rewarded than the champs in a way. So all of a sudden, I'll give you an example. Somebody posts a post, got a job, they might get 2 likes. Oh, I lost my job. You'll get 30, 50 comments. So it's that victim thing. And I said, and people now, especially the younger generation, are constantly trying to get approval and trying to be that people pleaser with their social media posts, and they're not being real. They're not being authentic. And that's one thing we've seen in our dad talks and stuff we've had is authentic. And I think one thing about you right now is everything you're saying is authentic. And I think people are not being authentic. What advice would you give a younger person? This is pure off now. What advice would you give a younger person that is just constantly going home and they're just struggling, where they put a post and they're not getting the likes, or not, because they're constantly trying to be a public or a person pleaser? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously, as we were talking about earlier, is that a lot of people go on these social media as a toy to fill that void, to be able to get approval, to get acceptance, to be noticed. Whereas we're going to make that shift into to where you can use it as a tool. And what I do is like, you need to shift from when you walk into a room, when you walk into a situation of trying to seek approval, trying to seek affirmation for somebody else, and trying to be noticed. And that's how I was on top of the world playing Major League Baseball. Whenever I walked in the room, oh my gosh, look, there's Shea Hillenbrand. I wanted that to be noticed. I wanted to have those affirmations because I was empty inside. So in order, we have to shift that to where when you walk into a room, you have to shift that to be, I want to change the atmosphere when I go into a room now. I want to change that atmosphere. And when you do that, what happens is people want to be around you and people want to do business with you. And that's where Clubhouse has been so great for myself, because I feel I know who I am, I know what I'm trying to do, and there's like this, I didn't even know I had this in me, this passion, this energy. It was feeling negativity my whole life and trying to fill that void. And I played that victim role my whole life, so I didn't even know I had this. So what happens is You have to be able to make an experience for people. In order to make an experience for people, you have to know who the heck you are. So that's the number one thing. Yeah. Understand who you are at the core. Figure that out. What are your likes? What makes you ticked off? What makes you tick? What are your dreams? What do you like to do? Stop trying to seek that affirmation of someone else, because we've all been given gifts and talents to be able to impact the world. So when you discover who you truly are, you discover gifts and talents you didn't have. This is the last thing I thought I'd ever be doing in my life, is this right here, because I hated myself. Yeah. And when you figure out who you are, understand those gifts and talents, you start operating at a higher level, past that 60% threshold where so many people are, because they have those limited beliefs that keep them down into mediocrity and complacency. And they're looking for that quick fix, that quick dopamine release to be able to go out there and to fill that void and to cover up that little void inside themselves. Us as men, we have ego and we have pride. But once you shift the energy in the atmosphere, once you create an experience, the way you do that is with your identity of who you are. You have to know who you are. And from there, you can work on inner peace. It all starts from the inside. And once you have inner peace, that's where the true power is. That separates the good from the great, the successful to the significant people. You can't be shifted once you find that inner peace of how you operate. And everybody's differently. The two things to be able to shift yourself is, like Tony Robbins says, the two spiritual ways is to grow and to give. You have to pour into yourself more than you do to your job or your brand or your image or whatever is on social media. Pour into yourself, make yourself better every day, because progression is the key to happiness.
I love that. I mean, there's so many little nuggets there, right? Let's talk about your zoo. You bought the zoo? It was already pre-done? Did you start it fresh? Did you pick a piece of land? Like, where did that whole process start?
Check it out. I bought 13 acres, and it's been $1 million cash on that, because I always want to have a private space to have animals. And when I was out there showing one of my friends one day, there was a horse farm behind, and this is when I was in the prime of my Major League Baseball career. I was like, I want to buy that. So I bought a 38-acre horse farm, and then I had a 4-acre portion that was 25-foot mounds of horse manure. There were 13 years of accumulation from the horse farm, because the horse farm had 126 stalls that were leased out. So it cost me $100,000 to haul off horse manure, and a month straight. And when I hauled it off, I was like, I want to put a zoo over here. I want to be able to do this and do this and do this. It just kept getting downloaded, and these dreams and these visions inside myself. And that's what happens. And so many people's dreams go dormant because life kicks them in the butt. They're trying to do what their dad wants them to do, their mom wants them to do, what society or what social media thinks you want to do. And it's just a totally wrong thing. You got to understand that, like, tap into that dream at a lower level and pursue that if it's inside you every single day. So I accumulated 300 farm and exotic animals, and I put them on this horse farm, and I had a vision of rehabilitating these animals with unconditional love. So I bring these animals in that were abandoned, abused, horses that were hit by cars and starved and neglected, and I'd just sit there and nourish them back to health. And I'd see this soul, the light going in their eyes, and like, this animal's ready, put them out there. And I have inner city disabled and child crisis kids come out and interact with the zoo. I had training, and I had pony rides, and man, it was amazing what happened on that farm. But I did transform so many lives, but I lost mine because I didn't know how to take care of and service myself. So I actually did that. All that dream, I utilized that to cover up that pain and to cover up and not have to address who I truly was.
So when did you sell the zoo? Did you close it down?
I lost it.
You lost everything.
After 4 years, I spent through the millions of dollars and I got divorced through that process, and I lost everything in my life. And it was the best thing that happened to me, because I needed to go through that, and I would never change anything in my life, my past, because it's led me to be right here, right now with you. I'm so honored to be in this situation with you and share this space on your podcast. So yeah, I lost that, and thank God I did. But that's something Tony Robbins is very, very passionate about when he talks, and is about embracing your pain and understanding that those lessons make you who you are. If you didn't go through that, you wouldn't be who you are as a man today. And if you 100%. Had this perfect life, you wouldn't be the man who you are today. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you have the understanding, and all those lessons are now lessons you're trying to help and teach other people. How did you get into real estate? Was that something you did as a major league? Did you invest? Like, how did you get into real estate? I bought the farm. And when I bought that farm, I'm like, this is pretty cool. It's acquiring land, like 38 acres. It was cool. I mean, I bought it at the wrong time. I bought it for $5 million. But it was really cool to be able to go through that process. So I started accumulating land, but then I got divorced and had to get rid of those assets and disperse those assets. And then I was in our master bathroom one day with my wife now. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so blessed to be with her. And she loves real estate. She absolutely loves it. And we started getting into investing. So we purchased homes and we rehab them, kind of like a glorified flipping process, which is higher. But we weren't doing it to flip. We were doing it to like take this old home and really put her twist and her thing on it because she loves doing it, and then provide somebody with a nice home, their dream home. So through that process of doing that, we were able to save on realtor fees because like the commission fees is realtors aren't doing anything. We're kind of doing the whole thing ourselves. And I said, and she works for a banking. She's in the banking business. And I said, you should get your real estate license. Because you're so good at it and you love doing it. And I'm like, I want to be an agent of change. I want to change people's lives. I want to be impactful. I want to do this. And she's like, I can't do it. I can't get my real estate license. That's what she told me because it's conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. Yeah.
So from there, she's like, why don't you get it? I'm like, okay, I'll get it. So I'm going through all these courses and I'm doing it for my wife. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. I really don't care about being in real estate. I like the investing side and being outside, but we'll do it. So been in the real estate game as a real estate agent, a realtor in Arizona here for 3 years. But I finally linked up with a brokerage to be able to do what I want to do with EXP Real Estate. It's a cloud-based brokerage to where you can have real estate agents from all over the country. We're expanding globally on their team, and I want to pour into the real estate agents. I want to help them. If that's what they love to do, I want to help them achieve their goals and their dreams through that process so they can have the success they're trying to seek.
Okay, so I'm going to dive into something right now. It's something that's obviously a huge part of who you are right now. Where and when did you meet your wife, your current wife?
Oh my gosh.
When is she coming in your life? Was it like, where'd you guys meet? At a coffee shop? Like, how did you guys meet?
No, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I'm actually talking to people in Hollywood, the directors for a movie in my life, because it's insane. Yeah. So what happened is my first purchase in the major leagues. When you get to the top, you always have a first purchase. Yeah. Like you buy your mama a house, you buy yourself a house, you buy yourself a pimping car. My first purchase in the major leagues was a horse. I always wanted a horse. I loved animals, but I grew up in Southern California in the suburbs, and my mom grew up in Missouri, and she's like, no animals, it's too much work. And I'm like, I want a horse. So she would never give me riding lessons, never let me have a horse. So my first purchase in the major league was a horse. So we fast forward. When I lost everything in my life, I had to disperse 300 animals. And it was the hardest thing I ever did because those animals were a part of me. Yeah. They were like, we were teammates and we were impacting life. We were playing the game with a purpose in that realm. So that night that I was one breath away from losing my life 8 years ago, I was lying on the floor of a van because I was done. And after overdosing on drugs and alcohol, here lies a guy with so many envy. My kids would go to school saying to all their friends that my dad played for the Diamondbacks, and I couldn't even function. I couldn't even work. I hated every part of my being. I wanted to die. So I overdosed on drugs and alcohol, and I'm laying on the floor of this van by myself, parked outside my ex-wife's house with my 3 children inside. I was done. And as the soul's leaving the top of my head, and I'm clinging on to my last breath, the thoughts going through my mind are, you're a failure. You lost everything. You're a loser. What kind of dad would do this to his kids? And what would your parents think if you left this world today? My answer to that was, I don't know. I'm nothing if I don't have baseball. So I was tired of fighting that pain during the game and I let go. I don't know if I died or if I fell asleep. But by the grace of God, I woke up the next day. The sun peeled through the third windshield of my van that I was living in. And the first thought that came into my mind was, where's your horse? As I came to. I had no side effects, no nothing. It was an aha moment. It was a defining moment in my life. With the alcohol and the drugs I took the night before, I should have been dead or in a hospital. I woke up and had no side effect. Where's your horse? I thought about this horse. And when you have a thought, it creates an emotion or a feeling. Yeah. And those emotional feelings are usually negative, and they were negative my whole life. But those emotional feelings dictate the actions that you take. So it gave me a good feeling when I thought about my horse, Coors Light. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to find him. Because I'm trying to ride this good feeling to get me through, because I almost just lost my life. I was one breath away. So I reached out to my friend that helped me get rid of all my animals at my farm. I said, dude, help me find my horse. He said, which horse? You have 56 horses. I said, the horse. He said, Coors Light? I said, yes. So he went on this reconnaissance mission, and he searched and searched. He said, dude, I found your horse. This is 4 years after I lost my farm. That day after I almost lost my life. So I reached out to this person on Facebook, and I said, do you have my horse? And this person says, why? Instantly. See, when he adopted an animal from me from my farm, because I rescued and adopted out over $1,000. I just placed so many animals. When you rescued an animal from me and adopted out, when you adopted it from me, I had to sign a contract, and I had first right of refusal to if you couldn't keep that animal, you had to give it back to me. This is 4 years later. And this person was freaking out that had my horse because that person had sent that horse to Utah from Arizona the day before. And that person thought I was going to get on to him, like, dude, what are you doing? You broke the law or broke the rules. But anyways, at that point in time in my life, I prayed for 2 years to have the Lord bring a woman in my life. Long story short, the person that had my horse that I thought about the day I got off my bed of being one breath away was my wife today. So she had my horse that I was searching for, my first purchase in the major leagues. So through that process, it's the last person that you would ever think that would be with me.
That's a crazy story.
It's insane because that's
like
how
you can literally sit here and write a book and make that story up, and people would not believe it. Like that's
the thing is, it's like story. Yeah, like people don't believe it. I'm like, it's the truth. Like it's like you can't make this stuff up. So like,
when you first met her, so when you first went there and met her, was it instant like wow, a connection, or was it a while of building a relationship up?
So what happened is she used to be riding horses at my farm, and she was married, and so I didn't really think anything of it. But all I remembered from her was her smile. And there was some instances where we interacted with each other, but I didn't even remember her name. I didn't even really like think anything of her. But when she had the horse, like something just kept tugging at me just to keep messaging her. And she's like, what are your intentions for messaging me? What do you want from me? And I'm like, I don't know, I just want to be nice. Like something inside me is like, go for that. That's the one. So we went on our first date, and I started telling her, I was like, you know what? I left Major League Baseball. I was kind of, I was pretty good, and I left baseball because of my kids, and I couldn't leave anymore, and this stuff. You know what she said to me? Our first date, she said, yeah, right. You quit baseball probably because you sucked. And I was like, this woman right here, I'm going to marry because she's telling me the truth. She'll keep me accountable. She'll love me unconditionally. She'll believe in me. She's the first person to do all of those. And I knew I didn't suck. So I was cool with that.
How many years ago was that now?
5 years ago. So it was six years ago that happened. Seven years ago that happened. Yeah. But I proposed to her 5 years ago on Valentine's Day, 2 days ago. And we've been married. We've been married 5 years, April 19th. So it's just, I never thought I could have a relationship. I didn't know how to treat people. I was treated like a god. I'd have girls in the stands holding signs saying, we're man and Shea, all that stuff. And it's just like, it's the greatest thing ever when you find your true story, when you find and connect with your true identity of who you are and make your impact in the world.
That is awesome. There's something that we talked about, I guess, in our Clubhouse Dad Talk, and I'm going to dive into it just a bit. Your dad is still with us?
No, he passed away, I think 4 years now. Yeah.
Did you have a relationship with him as an adult?
No, I cut my parents out of my whole career, saying I have to live with that.
You did cut your parents out. Is your mom still around?
She is around. Yes.
Do you have a relationship with her? I
have an amazing relationship with her, and I actually moved her down next to me. Out here in Arizona, and I take her out to lunch once or twice a week. And
I love that.
With her telling me stories, like my parents were married for 1.5 years before my dad passed away. And my dad was a white knuckler, so he went through some challenges, a generational curse with his father. And with that being said, it kind of transpired down to me because I was super sensitive. I was the most successful kid. And the stories that I created in my head with my father is how I dictated and went into relationships with him. So, my story started, I'm not going to tell my story, but I'm 14 years old. I'm sitting on my bed, and my dad walks into my room, and he says he's going to move our family from California, beautiful Southern California, to the hot desert of Arizona. That was like the number one defining moment in my life as an adolescent. I was getting ready to go into high school. I'd become a sophomore. I had my community of friends and everything. And the story I told myself when he left the room was, I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough. My dad doesn't love me. See, that's what I want to share with people is that story that you tell yourself is what dictates how you interpret that experience, how you communicate that experience to yourself, and how you go over and over in your head. It's going to drive you to what you do. So that's what drove me to the major leagues is because I wanted approval from my dad, but couldn't be further from the truth. And talking to my mom with stories now, she's like, man, your dad loved you guys so much. He worked 3 jobs and he got home in the middle of the night and he took care of you guys. I actually had struggled with you guys. And she's painting this whole different picture of what I had in my head with my dad my whole life. Like, I was at the All-Star game in 2005, representing the Blue Jays and in Detroit. And I had my whole entourage there. I had all my friends there. And like, because I thought I was bigger than the world. And I didn't invite my parents. And my parents were at the top deck of the stadium in Detroit, and they could pay their own way. And they told all the ushers, that's my boy down there playing third base in the All-Star game. And the fans, and because they're so proud of me. And they're like, well, why are you up here? And all the while, I'm on that field because I story I told myself, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, my dad doesn't love me. To experience after experience after experience. And I'm looking up in the stands, and I know that they're up there. I'm like, I effing hate this guy. I had to live with that my whole life. So I actually went back and rewrote history. I changed my perspective of situations and how I interact with situations, understood that my dad loved me the very best he could. My dad actually loved me so much that he moved our family to Arizona from California to give me a chance to play Major League Baseball. But I was so set on the story that I told myself that I wouldn't even listen to any of that stuff. So that's what it was. And my wife, Kristen, got me to reconnect with my dad. So I sat down, I told my dad my story, I told him everything, and I told him how he was an idol. This is like 6 months before he passed. And it was like he tearing up, and I was tearing up. And it was so liberating to say, you know what, I'm sorry, and I appreciate everything you did. And then 2 months after that, he sat down at my supper table at my house, like, son, I got to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, 14 years old, 15, what did I do? I hate this. All this internal turmoil is like just going in me. And this is like a little bit ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And he sat down, he's like, son, I'm proud of you. I just want to let you know how proud I am. I'm like, what? Like, that's what I was searching for my whole life. Because everything I did on a Major League Baseball field, all the success I had, that's all I ever wanted. And I said, wait, Dad, let me record that. Can I record that? Get that? Can you say that again? He's like, no, forget you. I'm not going to ever say that again because he was going through his internal struggles. So I kind of took that generational curse and that onto my kids. And that's one big thing I struggle with my kids. But what set me free and allowed me to be able to deal with what I've done in the past with my situations because I struggled, is that I sat my kids down and said, I took accountability, I'm sorry, I love you guys, and I'm doing the very best I can. And I'll do it. So I constantly tell my kids how proud I am of them, how much I love them, and how much, just try to boost them up because we've had a tough road.
Yeah, something simple like just even exactly what you said there, just telling your family on a regular basis, like every day, I love you. It is simple words. But that just goes, that memory block just keeps going and going. And I want to say, I mean, I want to talk about 2 things there. I love that you brought your mom to live with you and all this. I'm going to talk about that in a sec. But you having the opportunity to rectify or have that moment with your dad, you're very lucky because a lot of people don't have that moment. Mm-hmm. And that's something that it is very special. And as you're saying that, I got goosebumps because it's a lot of people don't have that moment. And it's something where I can't stand, if you listen to any of my podcasts, spend 2 minutes and listen to my podcast, something I praise all the time. And something I get so angry about is when I have friends or people come to me and they lose a loved one and they said, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. Do the shit when they're alive, when you still have an opportunity to make a difference or to close a door or to say something off your chest or just to say, I love you, because life is short. Things happen very quickly. And just for you to say you brought your mom and your relationship right now, and I appreciate that because you're giving her a chance to be by her grandkids, being by you, being by your wife, and whatever time she has left, hopefully 20, 50, whatever it is, but that is so precious. And I appreciate that because a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And I think that's such a special thing to do. And you're also allowing your children to see that, which is so special for them to see that with their grandmother and see the connection with you and her as well. So kudos to that, brother. I appreciate that. Of all our conversation today, that is the coolest thing you said today. And I appreciate that. Yeah, that is, yeah. So your children now, how many live with you? Because 2 or 3, said 3 of them are from your first relationship, or are they all from?
Yeah, they're straight.
Yeah.
The oldest three are adopted. I have Austin, who's 16, is the oldest one. He's like the main reason why I quit Major League Baseball, because I had a connection with him. My second one is a daughter, and she's 14, Dakota. Yeah. And the third one is Noah. He's a boy, and he's 14. So the 14-year-olds are 3 months apart, so they're like twins. Yeah. And then my wife had, and I split custody with their adopted mother, my ex-wife. Yeah. So I have them 50% of the time. And then Kristen, she has two daughters. That's Payson, who's 9, and Beckett, who's 7, and she splits custody with her. But we have the kids most of the time through this process, so it's not really 50-50, it's like 70-30. And being able to roll through that has been challenging for myself, because our environment's different than the other parents' environments, and learning how to be productive through that, because you see effects on the children. But I believe those environments can create resiliency with the kids, as long as you're with them to hold their hand to go through that.
Yeah. With baseball, would you ever see yourself involved in baseball in the future in any capacity? I'm just throwing it out there. I know you're a little smirk on your face.
No. I want to own a team. I want to own a team. Like, I want to own, like,
you actually want to own a team?
Like, not a major league team, but I want to own a team and then run it my way, because it would be rock star status, because obviously folks in the player. I would love to get back and speak to players in clubhouses and be able to be an advocate for them, because mental health is a huge thing. I'm a prime example. I'm like the number one, like, extreme example of somebody who one breath away from my life because of that mental health. But I don't know if I could. I don't know. Who knows? It's not worth going into it. But I would love to make an impact on those guys. And creating an agency.
I love. It's a very tough business. But it could be a money pit. But it's funny you're saying that, because I've always wanted to own a minor league baseball team. That is something I'm a huge baseball guy, right? So, and that's something I've always looked at. And in Toronto, they even have oh God, what is that? With the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is another league, and it's completely a money pit. But it's just I've always in my head, I'm like, that would be so cool just to run it properly and do it. What I do with my son, obviously 2020 COVID. We didn't have the opportunity. He's a huge baseball thing. He loves playing baseball. And we visit one major league park and one minor league park. And we always have more fun in the minor league parks. 2 years ago, we were at the Pelicans in Myrtle Beach, which we had the time of our lives, a great stadium. So we always do like the minor league stadiums, which I absolutely love. So have you ever had the opportunity or wanted to get in front of kids at a Division I school or something like that to talk? Because I think that is a huge impact you could impact so many lives, because a lot of these kids, they're not going to make the majors, and their identity is stuck to that sport. I think that is your biggest impact, and you could help so many young kids at that point.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 100%. And then being in these clubhouse rooms, there's clubhouse rooms on sports and mental health, and I hear story after story because I didn't play Division I because I wasn't good enough. I was going to play Arizona State, but I couldn't play there because obviously, I don't know. But I made my money in the big leagues. But I hear story after story about the same thing with Division I athletes. It's just like, it's crazy. So it's like, okay, how do we do it? I think it's being proactive on the front end. So I've created a system for Major League Baseball players at the apex, the top high performers, and trying to scale that down to high school athletes, to college athletes, and to semi-pro, or like in baseball, minor league baseball players, because this last year, thousands and thousands, like 3,000 minor league baseball players got furloughed. They don't have a job. So it's like, oh my God, they have no clue what to do. So being an advocate for that and being a resource for that and creating processes and systems and inspiring and helping transform. And my goal and my passion, my vision, and my dream is to be able to empower these athletes to leverage their platform that they're at. We need to disconnect the identity from the platform and leverage that platform where they're at to create a brand.
Yeah, I love that.
To take for it's going to. That's just what. But how can we take from the game? How can we leverage that and to kind of work on the person? We need to work on the person. So many people work on the performance of the athlete. Man, I can hit a baseball in my sleep. I've hit a million baseballs. Yeah. But I hated who I was. So what's the use of working on the performance side? We have to work on the person side. But the craziest thing is us as athletes, we're scared to go there to work on that personal side because we know deeply we don't have self-worth, self-confidence as a person. So we don't want to go there. And if we go there, that might take a hit on our performance self-confidence, the player self-confidence, because those things, the dichotomy between those two are tied together, and we're so scared to go there. But you have to go there to be able to get yourself in the position to seek the fullest version of yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Have you ever also thought of creating a program or something in regards to a program where you could actually allow parents of children that are in Division Ones or in something like that? Because I think a lot of people, when they look at an athlete, and this is me, I would say even as of a year ago or 2 years ago, and I think now that I've been networking for the last, like, I never branded myself. So the last 8 months was the first time, or 12 months, I built a podcast. I got certified. I built myself. I have a book coming out tomorrow. I'm actually releasing it called Entrepreneurial Dads. So it's I've branded myself, but I never spoke to individuals like yourself. So you see an athlete, you see a college kid, you see a high school kid, especially in the US, you know how it is in Canada. U.S. colleges sports it's huge. You're a pro almost. You're Friday Night Lights. You're playing football in a Division I school. You're a superstar in that town, and a lot of them are their identities at sport. And the outsider sees this kid smiling and happy and living the life, and nobody really knows what's going through their mind. And I think maybe being able to educate parents before they go to their kids enter college, or educating the parents or giving them some form of guidance, is going to help that parent open up the dialogue with their kid. Have you ever thought of doing something like that?
Yeah. I like my thing is I want to work on the influencers. I want to work on the trainers, the coaches, and the people that influence these kids. But we got to understand too, when you're doing that, we talk about it in a dad talk room in Clubhouse. Like, you have kids raising kids, so there's stuff and things that we need to equip these parents with: identity, purpose, what's driving you, where you're at. So it's like, what are the things that you and I need as a parent that can help guide and help make the best decision for our student athlete? So it's like, okay, we can give these tools and techniques, and this is my thought, is like, we're going to work on the parent first. We got to get them to understand, because what happens is the parents attach their identity to the kid's success. And then when they do that, they perceive that as, like we're talking about on that, it's like it's an investment. So now parents are investing so much money, like $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month, or it's $12,000 a year. Like, I paid $25,000 a year for my 2 daughters to do All-Star cheerleading. No. But my perspective is, I want the sport to teach them. I want what they can learn, the intangibles from that sport, to be able to help them develop, to give them opportunity to go to the next level as a person and what the sport teaches. But so many parents don't see that. They see the Friday Night Lights. They see the big D1 sport. They see the major leagues, and they see the money. And we all forget the playing to the process, because we don't even know who we are as parents. And I see it time and time again with parents, like, this parent needs more work than the kid.
Yeah. No, I see that, right? I'm involved in baseball here. Like, I'm part of the Ontario Board of Baseball and Brampton Bay Board of Baseball. So I see all the parents, and you know how it is.
I mean, hockey parents.
It's crazy
up there.
It's crazy.
Like, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, baseball's like that here in Arizona, because we can play year round. But the hockey parents are like, out of their mind. It's like, what is this?
You get kids, and you know how it is with sports. So when you're playing rep, there's AAA, AA, single A, and then there's elite and whatnot. But kids, you see parents of kids are like 12 and 13 playing single A or AA, which they're not going to go anywhere playing single AA. And these kids are paying $400 an hour for a shooting coach. They're paying, it is like nonstop. They got therapists. It's like they're investing $4,000 or $5,000 a month on this kid, with that little gamps that they're going to get drafted or. And you know, the odds are your path is very, 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 the chances are very low to create a path to what you did success-wise in majors. And it doesn't happen. It's just it's like 1%, if not less, to make a pro, to turn it to that level. So it's that pressure on the kids as well, right?
It's insane. And like, as you're saying that, I want to do a documentary. I want to do like a video, like interview, and sit down with these parents and like, wait, as they're watching the kids, like,
do you realize that a documentary like that would be on Netflix in 2 seconds, because so many people relate to it?
Why are we doing this? Why are you doing this? Oh, because I want to. Oh, really? Does he really want to do that, or is it what you want for him? Yeah. Like, where are we at? Is this your identity? Do you even know who you are? Where is it? Where are we going on with this? So like, I see this stuff because I see that I can't do youth baseball because the parents and the coaches ruin it. Because the coaches are leveraging the money, and the parents do whatever they can to put the pressure on the kids. Like, the coaches ruin the industry of youth sports. And that's what people don't realize. The parents aren't equipped to understand, to do its best. So they're trying to do everything to get the competitive advantage. But are you getting the competitive advantage? I got a PhD in swinging a bat. Like I was one of the best in the world. Like, and I feel a victim of that with my son. I was like, dude, if you do this, I felt like and he's like, Dad, I just want to play. I just want to love it. And that's the number one thing is you've got to love the sport.
Yeah.
Is your kid going out there when you're not telling them and wanting to do the extra work? With myself when I was a kid, I was throwing a ball against the wall all day long. I was hitting the ball off the tee. My parents didn't have to tell me. That's what it takes to get to the top. And if the kid doesn't have that, then we have to, reevaluate and see, okay, maybe we can still keep them in the sport, but maybe let's leverage the sport to keep the community, teamwork, all the intangible of the sport. But we can't make ourselves vulnerable enough as parents to say, you know what? No, we gotta go. We're like, we gotta go where?
Yeah, and I do agree with what you're saying. There's so many tangibles and lessons you can learn from a team sport, right? And things that you could actually utilize towards the rest of your life if you're smart with it. And especially at a young age, you can learn. So there are a lot of benefits with team sports, and I do appreciate kids that play sports. Like my daughter does high performance dance, my son does baseball. I like to keep them active. I like to keep them going. Where both our kids are workout fanatics. Both my kids work out 5-6 days a week on their own. Like they literally come home, and my son's running the treadmill for 45 minutes. Like which 12-year-old does that, right? Is that drive? And I've taught that from a young age, and as part of their, like my daughter, like she won't touch junk food. She's like a health fanatic, and she's all about vegetables and eating and making her juices and her smoothies, and all these things are just setting up those steps towards her future where she's going to be so much more active, so much more healthy, which I appreciate, right?
Yeah, and I said when you're talking about that, what comes to me, like what would help the parents is, okay, how can we help you create an environment that's conducive for the kids, not telling them what to do, not taking them all this stuff. Like, let's create an environment to where it's conducive to where they can latch on to those stuff. Like, that's not normal, what you guys are doing. And that's super cool because those are success habits right there.
Yeah, I love it. So where do you see yourself? I mean, there's obviously in the last few years, 4 or 5 years, your life has changed drastically. Your path and your journey is really at the takeoff spot. You're still not even probably taking off to where you're going to end up. Where do you see yourself being in the next few years, impactful wise? And where do you see your journey going with do you want to be on stage impacting? Do you want to be in clubhouses? Like, where do you want to see yourself? Because you're already only one person and there's a lot of people to be impacted. Where do you want to keep your focus on in the next little while, in the next year or two?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I appreciate that. And it's awesome because I got a 5-year plan going on.
You do good.
My partner and I, we created Elite One Performance. That's what this hat is. And we want to teach people the things and give them the intangibles to become the one. Be the one that they've been created to be the one that they've always wanted to be. Because everybody, wherever you go, you want to be the one. So that's what I'm starting with this, mindset training or peak performance or high performance training of identity of who you are and tapping into a deeper version of yourself. I believe it starts there. And then from there, what we're going to roll out after that is a training program. Like physical training program, and then we envision opening up like those fitness gyms, like the F45s or something like that, to be able to have a place for people to go train. But the whole kit and caboodle with the mind, with your identity, and with your body. And then from there, what we're doing is we're gonna launch a supplement brand line of supplements because we're very familiar with that space of being a professional athlete. My partner played professional baseball, wrestled in WWE. That was an actor in Hollywood, so we got all this stuff covered. And then from there, what I want to do is...
You want me to ask who your partner is?
His name is Derek Neitkirk.
What Derek Neikirk, you said?
Neitkirk, Neikirk. So and then from there, we're launching a production company because I think where my place is in front of the camera. I want to be able to create short videos or short films or create storylines around products and ideas to be able to solve problems within a different industry. So within that 5-year span, I want to be able to scale all that to the 50 to 75 million mark. And that means because you're making an impact and you're impacting.
I like the mindset what you had right there with the gym, because I mean I've been in the gym industry for years. I used to consult for gyms. I used to put back-end systems in gyms, and reality is it's so powerful, the mind aspect now, and it's so powerful the physical aspect. Like even though my kids are my family, my wife, my kids are everything to me, I still put health as a pinnacle. Like if you see pictures of me, like I still taking care of myself and investing in myself mentally, physically, spiritually is still the priority, because if you're not at your peak, you can't give to everybody else your max. So I always take care of myself first, and then everything else flows under it. And there is no real, when you think about it, I don't know what it is if there is in the US, but in Canada, there's no gyms that you could go in and actually deal with the mental, the physical, the spiritual, all in one holistic thing right now. So I think that's something you could, if you jump on, I think that could be, I know, I was about to say, why are you telling people that? I go, this is a great idea. You go in there, you get your mind reframed, you get your body reshifted. You're like, it's a great concept. And everything, I love businesses, and I'm all about building stuff. And there's so many things I do that we take forever to talk about, but I love businesses that all impact and work connectedly. And what you're saying there, the gym, the mind, the supplement, everything just works together. The content you're building, everything just works holistically together, and it just grows together. And you could just grow this little empire. Yeah, good for you, man. I wish you all the luck and success, and I don't have zero doubts that it's going to be a massive company. And the more important, it's going to be a massive company to impact millions and millions of lives. So I love that. Good for you, brother.
Absolutely, and I love to include you on it if you want. We can talk about it, whatever you want to do, buddy. But I think that's the thing is,
I want one of those hats. First off, I'm a hat guy. I wear a hat all the time. I want to get one of those hats.
Absolutely. And I think so many times, like in the gyms, people go, like they have a 75 hard thing with Andy Frisella right now. Like, okay, what do we do after 75 days? Because it's a mindset change. Yeah. It needs to start from there. And then people stay in the mind, but it's a heart set change, right? You want to change your heart. You can attach to your identity. So I think like I have a vision of whoever participates in these gyms, like, hey, you've got these videos, you've got this stuff, and you can, like, we've got these training programs that you can do to where you can achieve what you are. Because a lot of people just focus on one area, right? Yeah. People just focus on the peak performance, or they focus on the physical, or they focus on the supplements and the dietary side. But it's like, okay, how do we integrate these three to be able to give people the opportunity with the resources to be the one? Because I'm telling you, like, everybody wants to be the one. Listen, what they said, and be the one, not the one like the number one in the industry, but to be the one that you're meant to be. Be the one that you're put here to do and be it. And everybody's different, right?
Yeah. So 100%.
We need the whole mix of everybody as well. So that's what's driving us. That's what's driving me right now. And
how did you? I know your time is limited because I know you. I want to give you a little break before you jump on your next one.
I don't need a break. I'm always ready, dude. I don't need a break.
Your partner. Where did you meet your partner?
In junior college. We went to junior college. At junior college, we played baseball together in junior collge, and he thought he was good, and we always talk crap to each other. Like, we always seriously, like, we're like, dude, F you suck, and you're this, and you're that, and he's like, screw you, like, and then the hitting, like, the pitching coach, like, dude, stop yelling at each other, go behind the dugout and fight. This is the college coach. So what we both said? We turned around and said, F you, dude, screw you, we'll kick you out there. So it's like, we were just head to head, and he went on his path. At 9 years old, he told his mom that, hey, Mom, I want to be a professional baseball player. I want to wrestle in the WWF because the WWE was around then, and I want to be a movie star. Dang if he didn't do it. Like, he played professional baseball with the Detroit Tigers. He didn't make the major leagues. And then he went to WWE, and he wrestled with The Rock and Tag, all this stuff. And now he's in Hollywood doing that stuff. But he went on his path, and he had a pistol in his mouth, too, for the process. He almost ended his life. And, God saved both their lives. And then we kind of reconnected because we always liked each other, and it was like an instant like connection of like.
Where did you reconnect? When and where?
Reconnected after I connected with Krista. After I really found out who I was. After I was going from that survival state to the flourishing state of understanding, I was like, okay, something is going on me to call him, and that's what it was. And he said, I said, you might think I'm crazy. He's like, no, dude, I went through the same thing. So that's what's driving us all. That's what's driving us.
But how did you obviously you guys disconnected in that process. How did you guys reconnect? That's what I meant. Like, did you find him on Facebook? Did you through a friend? You just called him after all those years, huh?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I remember playing when I played for the Diamondbacks. I was in Atlanta, and he was wrestling in the WWE in Atlanta, and he got his girlfriend with him. It was like one of the celebrity wrestling girls, and I was like, dude, you guys are losers. Because I hated myself, right? So we always kind of like had this competition of like, dude, I'm gonna get there. You're better than I'm better than you. And so it's like we're at the point now. It's like we both failed, so we want to use what we got, our gifts, to impact the world. So it's interesting, the story of that kind of that relationship with him and I to do that. Like with that too, I wrote with that in my wildest dreams that would happen. So, but that's where we are.
That's awesome. It's It's so funny that like I'm a lone wolf when it comes to business, and I've tried partnerships twice, and both times they haven't worked because they were forced together. They weren't organically or naturally came together. And I think yours is going to work because it naturally it wasn't forced together. And
if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then we pivot and we do it different way. That's the thing about an athlete, special athlete. Like, you're gonna have to pivot. Sometimes you have to pivot. I've created relationships where I had to, like, okay, dude, this is what it is. Either we have to move you on the bus, or you have to get off the bus because this is where I'm going. Like, my why is insane. My vision is insane to impact the world. I know I've been given a voice that I've found that it's going to impact millions of people's lives. So if we don't understand the same vision, I'm sorry, I love you, but we got to get off the bus. And that's part of the process of understanding who you are. And we do it in a loving way, we do it in a kind way, but it's like, you got to make those decisions. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm used to stuff failing, but I'm used to pivoting. I'm used to trying a different way. And so
after our conversation, I'm going to go for a fucking jog. You got me so fucking amped right now.
Afterwards, because I want to pick you. I want to get your advice and mentorship with these gyms, because
you know what? When we get off here, I honestly, when it comes to gyms, I know everything about a gym, and I'm not even over exaggerating. From PAP, pre-authorized payments, back end, I know how to run a gym inside out, like inside out. And so I would, as a friend, I'll help you out as much as I can, and we'll sit down and whenever you're ready, I'll give you all the information you need for gyms, because I know that gym industry. I know. At 19 years old, Shea, I was standing in front of 500 people teaching membership sales to gyms at 19. Like, that was what I did.
Like how? How did it come?
I had a mentor, this guy named Steve, and it was funny that back then at 19, he was teaching me NLP, how to reframe, I don't even know if we should talk about this on the air, but we used to be pre-sales in gyms 3-4 months before the gym would open. We would have a wall, 2 tables, and we'd be selling 30, 40 memberships a day. We would pay a part-time kid in the summer to be in the back. Anytime somebody would come in for the sales tour, he would be hitting hammers saying there was construction. The gym was even starting to build, and we were selling, like, that's like old school shit, man. I was like a king of selling memberships and selling back-end systems. And then I built my company called Millennium Bodies at 19. It was a consulting business. Back then, personal training wasn't huge. Personal training was small, but the big box gyms didn't have personal training. It would just have PAP, front authorized payments through the memberships. So I used to go to the gyms and say, hey, let me build in this back end systems. So we get a little office in the back. We'd hire a couple of trainers. We get somebody in, and you would force to do an assessment. You pay $99. That money would be turned into an assessment. We would run you through a 10-minute little, beat the little crap out of you, make you do 100 push-ups, make you, even if the guy was in shape, you'd push him so he was to look like he was out of shape. I shouldn't even be saying this shit out there. And then we put him in a room and we'd hit him hard and sell a 15, 20 package, personal training package, boom. And it got to the back point where the back end were making way more money than the front end with the personal training. And then we set up juice bars in these gyms. And so we build all this extra revenue to the gym. But back, my thing is apparel. We said we make apparel, we make jackets, we make goods. We bring all this extra revenue to the gyms. And essentially that's what even happened with my Kimura, were with equipment. So essentially we started the equipment brand. We started as an apparel brand. And I did that as an apparel brand. That was right before the UFC took off. So we've been doing this for 15 years. That was even before Tap Out. None of these brands like Dan's, none of these were big. They were starting off. So I started off as an apparel brand. At one point, we sponsored 26 guys in the UFC. We had 26 guys wearing our walkout shirts. But then all these big brands like Tap Out and all these guys started throwing all this money at these guys. And I was like, okay, time to pivot. And we pivoted into equipment. And then from equipment, we pivoted automatically into custom. So we customize gyms from start to end now, from opening up gyms, from all their equipment, from bags to punching equipment to all that stuff. But at the same time, too, in the process, I realized all these mama papa martial art gyms, they're not making money. And I was like, these guys have to make more money to survive. So I started calling them all and saying, listen, members coming in there, they're turning to the local Walmart to buy a pair of gloves. Do you sell anything to them? No. And then I started selling wholesale to them. That was a no-no in the industry because all the big equipment brands would never sell to a gyms. They would sell to the shops and the stores. I said, screw the shops and stores. I'm going right to the gyms. And I built literally a whole relationship with 1,800 gyms where they just buy off us wholesale. And that brings that revenue that pays the rent and pays the stuff. And now we built this relationship with them all. So I'm always pivoting stuff. But when it comes to the gym industry, I could honestly tell you, I know that shit inside out. I could probably save you years of shit and headaches with the gym industry. So
I love it, man. Dropping those bombs, man. That's so, I love it. I'm speechless. Not many times I'm speechless. I love it.
So I never have any set question. I only have one set question I ask everybody before we end our podcast. In a few words, Shea, how would you want to be described by your loved ones if something were to suddenly happen to you?
I want to be that the game changer. I want to be the one that they know that passionately at the core I took accountability. And I get emotional. Take accountability for who I am and the mistakes, and knowing that I tried the very best I could, because that's where it's at. You have to try the very, very, very best you can and give max effort in any situation that you go in. Because if you don't give max effort at any situation, at any period of your life, then what happens is two things. You place blame on other people, and then you make excuses inside your head of reason why you are where you are. So give them max effort and be in that guidance to teach trueness, to try to help them get through their purpose of where they're going and make that impact, to shift their mindset. That's the number one compliment that my wife has ever given me, because she's uber successful what she does. She said, Shea, sweetheart, you've shifted my perspective and gave me a different perspective on life, and it has a deeper meaning. That's it.
I love it. I love it. That's a perfect way to end it. On our show notes, I'm going to put all the information how to get a hold of Shea. We're hoping in a couple of years we're going to see a massive franchise of gyms. They're going to shift everybody's mind and body. There's so many layers here, man. There's so many layers. We could talk for forever here. I love this. I'm going to put all information how to get a hold of Shea, how to follow him on social media, how to hit him up on Clubhouse. Obviously, Clubhouse, we didn't even talk about that today, is a big part of who he is, because as you can see through his excitement and through his energy, that app is essentially made for him. He'll be able to change a room, change the attitude, and teach on the spot and help people on the spot, which I love. And this has been a great conversation. Anything you want to end off telling your audience, and how do they reach you, and how do they could get a hold of you?
No, the thing is like this: you're one breath away. If you're one breath away, don't give up, because we all go through that. Put yourself in a position. Keep pouring the good in your ears, and keep trying to make yourself better. Don't ever think that you've arrived, because if you think you've arrived with where you are, whether you're having success or if you're in complacency, the game of life will kick you in the tail, and you have to pour into yourself. Oprah said it best: you're in charge of filling yourself up and keeping yourself full. You have to work harder on yourself than the game.
Love it. Love it. This is awesome, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
brother.
I appreciate it. I'm honored. Cheers.